much fun.
Fantastic. Well, I guess it's 6:30. This time, could everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, may we have the roll call, please?
Okay, Chair Wrench,
Present.
Vice Chair Malecki. Present. Commissioners Remington. Here. Here. And Alderwoman Jerry. Here. And Kevin Schlater.
Here.
Marion. Yes.
Here.
Glenn Morrow.
Here.
And Dale Forger.
Here.
And we
At this time, we'd like to open it up for a citizen comment period. And since there are no citizens, we can probably close it. Move to Roman numeral 3, the approval of minutes from the meeting of March 13th, 2000.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You guys have it. Awesome. We'll move to number 4, unfinished business. Gentlemen, can we have an update on parks maintenance?
The A-Spring's been taken down.
Premature.
Since last week. All the pavilions are open except for Ken Wendell. That's just one bathroom. It take a half hour to open now. Legend 2 pickleball nets are on. They've been on for after that last snowstorm, I think. So some of the tennis nets are on. All the trail markers from the trails for the winter have been taken down, so the trails are kind of all set. And some of the picnic tables have been taken to the parks this summer, and that's just got to taken to the parks this summer, and that's just got to finish. A little more to do to summarize everything, but this past weekend they had the Easter egg hunt at Legend 1 and Kevin says that he saw pictures of it all, or he went past and saw a lot of people there. So we had that ready. Last question.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't think it warranted its own. Agenda item, but I did want to talk about the repaving of the tennis courts we've talked about, the maintenance, if you will. We had talked to you before about taking them out of service one at a time. Talking with some contractors on. It's just going to be very, very expensive because they have to remobilize every time. So the thought is they'd like to just come, take them all out of commission at once and do that. So the thought is, obviously, we don't take them out of commission until the summer and those kinds of things, although that is an option. The thought of time to get them all paved, let them sit over the winter time, and then we'll go back and coat them in the springtime, make sure that they completely dry out and are ready, set to go. We wouldn't restripe them or repaint them. I wouldn't care if people went out there and played on them and they could put little lines on them if there were. We would pave it and put the coatings on this year. So maybe towards the end of this year, like at the end of the paving season, we would repave them and come in the springtime when it warms up and coat them, have that in our budget for Parks Commission would be amiable to that. I think that's the direction we go.
How long did it take down? A month?
We have some estimates. Jack Workman, just because of how much work, it would be 8 to 10 weeks. Of course, that's not really in commission right now. But 3 to 4 weeks is the typical, 3 to 4 or 45, depending on the complexity of it. But typical 3 to 4 or or 45, depending on the complexity of it. But thought is, again, just take them all down at once, or take them down as we start to do them, so that way we don't have to pay a contractor to remobilize. Save a tremendous.
I was going to ask how much cash, you know.
What's that?
How much money do you think would be saved?
What's that?
How much money do you think would be saved?
Several tens of thousands.
Sure.
So
And that's responsible. Everybody else think?
I don't
And then
think-
they stripe them and
then we go back and coat. Then we go back and coat them in springtime.
does that have to wait till like thing is over and all that? So when would they be ready to be used?
We would actually check for moisture density,
Yeah,
moisture in the asphalt. We don't have the same thing that happened
yeah,
Pleasant.
right. What I was
Um,
thinking about.
So yeah, we don't have the same thing that happened
Yeah,
Pleasant.
right. What I was
Um,
thinking about.
So yeah, one, it would give the asphalt a chance to cure. You just have to, it's a matter of how much it rains in the springtime until we start.
Will letting it sit out all winter have any sort of negative effects? Springtime, will it have to be like resealed or recoated or anything? I know there are negative effects. Springtime, will it have to be like resealed or recoated or anything? I know they're going to stripe it.
No. I don't believe so. I'm still learning about the whole thing.
Yeah. Roads sure take a beating.
I mean, we have a really great October and.
Well, we'll have to tell the contractor when they can come in. Of course, when the asphalt plant's closed, second week in November. Second week in November. So, you know, about the middle of October, we'll have to shut them down and give the contractor enough time to get in and do everything. What we don't want to have happen is when the contractor get started, then he'll have to stop because maybe the asphalt plant fails.
Yeah.
Just to comment. I would suggest in the late summer, early fall newsletter to put a little blurb in there, just alerting residents that all of our tennis courts are going to be out of commission, and
We will have Pleasant View, hopefully. Knock on wood.
hope to have everybody up and running with new courts in the spring.
And does the city do the striping or does the company?
So, if we were to stripe them, it's
Striping or does the company?
so. If we were to stripe them, it's paint that we've done in the past, but it'd be nice just to coat them like professional coating. We'll put that in our budget. Of course, that may get.
So it wouldn't be paint, it would be like Pleasant View, that coating.
That would be my intent. I would.
Yes.
Typically, your tour of the parks is in October, so something to think about. You could take a look at the.
I definitely think that.
We'd start with the
Yeah.
worst ones, like Jack Workman would probably be the first one, but work our way up, and we might order them. Order they're taken out of commission, but
So they like work on a court, let's say Jack Workman, and they do that whole thing and then they move to another court? Not they're doing two at one time?
so there's a couple. Want that paving operation to continue. They move it from one court to another as opposed to moving from a court, go back to their shop.
Sure.
I think it's just part of the park maintenance. I just wanted to let the commission know that we have two groups of volunteers that would like to help clean up Kayla's Playground, one of which is on April 25th. You're all invited to join us out there. That's a smaller group. It'll be about 4 people plus DPW. But we also have 10 to 15 volunteers trying to find some more people plus DPW. But we also have 10 to 15 volunteers trying to find some work. I know I've been emailing with Dale trying to figure out how we can provide some duties for them. They're eager college students from Wisconsin College. So I'll follow up with an email the students from Wisconsin College. So I'll follow up with an email on the timeline on that April 25th date. There's also a rain date scheduled for the 26th. So I'll include. Should I send that to you, Marion, or can I send that out? Okay. I just figured that would be part of the parks.
What are they gonna do, just go around and pick up trash?
Dale has his typical spring cleanup. I don't know if you wanted to.
We did this a couple of years ago, and I got a load of mulch, and they spread mulch around the side of the playground there, and caps, and some installed the green caps on the post.
We'd empty the bird feeders.
Yeah.
Or checked on the bird feeders around the wetlands.
The Boy Scouts made the bird houses around the trails. They went around and cleaned out those. They went walking down paths, the trash. I don't remember anything.
It was a long list.
What time do you need?
I don't know if that's been determined yet.
It's on my computer email at home. I couldn't bring it up here. I believe it's on my computer email at home. I couldn't bring it up here. I believe it's in the afternoon. There was some dates or times floating around, but it's for sure April 25th. Rains that day, it will be. We'd love to have you all join us. And then as far as the 10 to 15 volunteers, we'll figure that out. I'll get working with Gail on a Thursday night.
Thank you. Guess we can jump to letter B, or to Glenn.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, Glenn, do you need anything from us on that?
I don't think I need a motion as long as I have your blessing.
I think, was anybody opposed to it? Awesome. We'll jump to letter B, 2022-2023 budget. We'll jump to letter B, 2022-2023 budget. Parks Commission request for information on personnel additions, capital outlay fund needs, equipment revolving fund needs, street improvement fund needs, and major capital expenditures to be made with borrowed funds.
So my intention is to get this group a worksheet to work through what last year's request was. Last year's priority was resurfacing of Kayla's playground as it was the year before. Also, at our last meeting, I included a copy of the Parkland Acquisition Study, which made a recommendation about how to dispose of impact fees in the immediate term. So it's time to start thinking about recommendations you might like to make in the future. If you'd like to revisit that study a couple of months about the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. That plan is part of the planning department's budget. And so too was the Parkland Acquisition Study. So, those are things we would address that way as opposed to W's budget, but hoping maybe next year we can see how that goes. But all things going well.
I do have a question for moving back. Would it be helpful if there was some type of budget kick in to help fund like a part-time office assistant? Something talk about reservations of sports facilities for baseball and pickleball. I don't know the workload of the clerk who would handle that, but would it be helpful to try to push to get a part-time seasonal position to help with that, or
Is that something?
Yeah, actually have a meeting to discuss the overall permitting process because right now it's housed in 3 different departments. Something we certainly talk about. They have a seasonal burden with those as well. And
Sure.
they come to this body. There needs to be a way to centralize it. I think we'll have that discussion, but if you guys have a recommendation about it.
excellent. Anybody else have anything? I guess we'll move to letter C, the Parks Amenities Donation Policy with Parks marketing materials, including maps, pamphlets, etc.
So currently, that final draft has been routed for feedback, and the clerk's office didn't have any additional comments. So if DPW doesn't, didn't have any additional comments. So if DPW doesn't, I'm working on including it in the next newsletter, hopefully. I do have a question I have to resolve about what the funding line is for that. So hopefully we'll get it in the next newsletter, but you have a comment?
Again, I'd just like to say that Karen did a really good job on that. It really looks good.
That's a great comment. Yep. So,
Well, you helped out too.
Yeah.
Together.
I did this much. You did this.
Together.
I did this much. You did this.
And that's the map of the parks
Yeah,
and location.
I did update them because I changed the name of the Vernon Park.
Okay.
Yeah, so the numbers kind of changed a little bit and stuff like that. And I did take out the new parks just because changed a little bit and stuff like that. And I did take out the new parks just because I think they felt uncomfortable that they were there, so I just took them out altogether. Even though I was happy that we have them, it's just maybe not time to promote.
Mine's about just overall how permitting is organized. So that'll probably be part of the discussion as well, because just as the process is housed in a lot of different places, information is housed in a lot of different places on the website. So I know the request is to put the map on the front page probably, but in terms of like where it lives, in terms of which group is responsible for it, sort of default place for commission's webpage, but that would not be. So, well, that'll be
What is the print deadline for the next season?
Friday.
Coming Friday? When we get to see, it's gonna be,
Yeah, did you want a copy of it?
yeah, is that the final?
Yeah. I think it was.
Almost exactly.
There was a
Right,
little
you
change
said you
in
took
an
out the new
address.
parks though, as future
Let me
parks.
just look over.
Yeah, there it is, there. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks very nice. Sorry. Thank you.
Yes, it's gonna be in color. Newsletter.
Such a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah,
I'm okay with the last one.
so if you happen to see something, just let me know.
That's what was in color.
Yeah, well, my color printer, I don't have one anymore, so, at home, so. The next thing that I'm going to work on is our little pamphlet thing, because it kind of complements this. So I'm working on it. I don't know what to do with it next. There's still a couple things that I need to get the information on, but we're working on it. It's like, all the permits to rent all the stuff, like the ball diamonds and the pickleball, that's in the works. I can take all the stuff, like the ball diamonds and the pickleball, that's in the works. I can take that page out. Because if it's just going online, it's not going to cost us anything to put it online. So add pages on.
Marion, you were gonna, right?
I can definitely do that. I had a note about sharing information with her just in general, so.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll move to letter D. Little League and/or Adult Recreation League, Youth League, and community reservations of sports facilities for baseball and pickleball.
packet about this. Dale very thoughtfully put together a drawing of the information that was on the whiteboard behind us and shared it. So you have a copy of that in your packet. And then Commissioner Lance put together a draft proposal about reservation guidelines. Commissioner Lance put together a draft proposal about reservation guidelines. So that's in your discussion. I know not everyone got their packet. Is there anyone else that didn't get it? Besides? Oh, you got it on your phone.
I'm reading it.
Oh, you got it on your phone.
I'm reading it on my phone, so that's, so looking at it here.
So do you want me to walk through that?
That would be amazing.
And, and people can comment, can update. So I just had, City of Franklin has numerous pickleball courts which can be reserved for play. My Lions 2, which would be Vernon Bar, 4 permanent, 4 stripe. The rec department takes precedence in reserving the courts during specific dates and times. And I listen in Wendell, I should really update it. It really has 3 striped. There's one on one tennis court and 2 on the other. Pleasant View, same, is 4 permanent and 3 striped. I'll update that. City has established the following guidelines and systems I got from different sources of different people reserving courts. The public can reserve time on the calendars for the courts on the City Franklin's website or at the clerk's office. And so I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about, but it would, if they could do something where they could really do a website on first served basis, but with the exception of about the rec. Reservation should be limited to 2-hour blocks or less of time so as to provide all members, I guess all citizens, available time slots on any day. 1 reservation per citizen per block of time. The cost to reserve. To reserve on the calendar. Please reserve your court no more than 7 days in advance. No standing reservations, which will allow all citizens to access, utilize the courts. Water bottles, coolers, jackets, etc. are not allowed inside the court as they create a tripping hazard. Clean up trash, close the gates before you leave. Failure to leave the court litter-free may result in loss of future reservation privileges. Cost again. Cancellations. You may cancel your reservation online in advance. Question would be how much in advance of the reservation online in advance. Question would be how much in advance of the reservation time. Courts left vacant 15 minutes after reservation time are available for walk-up play. They would be available then. Individuals found to have reserved and not used their time will not receive a refund. But then individuals found to have reserved and not used their time will not receive a refund. But then I asked, what if it rains? Because we always, that would be a situation where they might want to give a refund. Proof of reservation, you would receive an email with a link to your permit. You must have printed, a printed or electronic copy of the reservation confirmation with you on the day of your reservation in order to use the courts. And that might be kind of nice to have a box they could stick that in, just like they do at the pavilions. They put their reservations there. Reservation and is intended for pickleball at Kim Wendell, Pleasant View, and Lions 2. Permittee may not block more than 1 court in a day or 3 courts in a calendar week. No extra time would be given outside the reservation. In case of an emergency, call 911. Liability, the reservation holder agrees to reimburse, including the department who sustains property damage, such as broken windows, for the cost of that damage. Where such damage occurs on public or private property, when such damage is caused by the use of the facility. In addition to the reservation holder, the person who is representing the holder agrees to be personally liable. No representing the holder agrees to be personally liable. No assignment or transferring. This reservation may not be assigned or transferred. Violations of any of the above conditions may result in depriving the reservation holder of further use of facilities. prohibited items, activities, alcohol, gambling, or further use of facilities, prohibited items, activities, alcohol, gambling, quarreling, profane language, smoking, food or drinks on athletic courts, dogs, bicycles, metal cleats, motorcycles, skateboards, rollerblades, sharp objects, chewing gum, and sunflowers. No-show policy if the permit holder objects, chewing gum, and sunflowers. No-show policy if the permit holder does not show up within 10 minutes after the reservation start time, the reservation is forfeited and voided. No refunds will be made. Violations of any of the above conditions will result in depriving the reservation holder of further use of facilities, fines via citations. So I think the big things are if we're going to get something online and what we think should be charged for, for the use of the courts. If they want to reserve, I guess you could walk up and play. Any thoughts?
One thing I just circled was for prohibited items. I might change dogs to say animals, with the exception of certain animals.
Okay.
Well,
I guess you could, huh?
that's typically what they
Okay.
the discipline act. But yeah, I would make it any animal.
Okay. Other than service dogs.
Or not dogs, but just service animals.
Okay.
There's a process to get a
Yeah.
certified right
Okay.
for that.
I got that off some other sites. That's what their standard was. I looked at several different sites, and I don't know. I mean, any of this can be changed. I just thought I would start.
That just stuck out to me, like why we would limit that 3 courts in the calendar week. But what if you went every day and then had a court every day for a week? Like, say I have my family in town, I want to do my family reunion football tournament, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Is there you know what I mean? Like, can you think
Yeah,
of
it was
reasons
just
why
kind
we
of a
wanna limit
standard that I saw in several different sites. They use 3 different sites. They use 3 times a week. You could courts.
You could have it be without approval, and then someone wanted to. Or
Oh, that's where is that? Where is that?
It was
on
at
here?
the top one for terms and conditions. Terms and conditions. And what if it rains? My recommendation might be to say that you could apply that fee to an alternate date or be refunded.
But how much in advance? Because you don't want somebody calling. But how much in advance? Because you don't want somebody calling 15 minutes before. Are you going to give them 24 hours? They would have to cancel or
for rain.
Yeah, well, for rain, I think if it's courts are wet. Wet.
They reserve it on Sunday. We won't have anybody here on Saturday to take the phone call. Or Monday. Here on Sunday.
But unless they have a website, that they could go in and, would all show the time. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If it's I just think a lot of people might.
I think some of this will be dependent on, so at present, we don't have a recommendation as staff about the reservation website. You have some tools that would be helpful for us. Like using access and easy to use and makes sense, because there are certain things that the clerk's office will want to be able to do, and that it will need to be as well, but more than having recommendations. Right now, we've considered and rejected Sign Up Genius and have not gotten farther.
Is that what the rec department used? Is that what she said? No.
Department of Education did, and the Scouts use that as well.
I use it for the
Yeah.
gas.
Milwaukee County uses the website system Track,
REC.
RECTRAX, for their online system. We do run into challenges, book permits, where one individual will get on first like they're buying Taylor Swift concert tickets and book everything
Yeah.
every single day all summer on certain sites. So this is a concern that has to be brought up. The other thing I would caution against refunding anytime if you do anything else, there might be the threat or it might be raining at one park and not at another. And
Right. Yeah.
everybody's going to be calling the office and somebody's going to have to play weather person. I think it's going to be a lot on staff. I would think that we would keep it cheap, rain or shine. Play, you play. If you don't, it's $5 or whatever the cost is. Fortunate,
Mhm.
you know.
That might prevent people from trying to book way in advance.
Oh, that, yeah.
So
Kind of
Rain or shine? Okay, I like that.
I think that eases some of the burden on staff. I think an online reservation system is something that would be beneficial. I think this is a good start. So it's a worthy discussion. But I also think that when we get to that point where we start to. But right now, it's you walk up here on a Monday morning, billion effort picnic we're going to have to offer. What the workload of the clerk is, but I can just see a long line of people out the door waiting for cracks at the limited time slots we have. But I think we do need to address it and set something up as we move forward.
And maybe add to the list of post-budget items for next year. Some research on the costs and how it would be administered and where it would fall under. And is it possible that the rec department would share that cost?
Is it possible you could set it up so that maybe it would only allow you to reserve a room? Or you could set it up so that maybe it would only allow you to reserve a room place a week ahead of time.
All different.
So
Going and block things left and right.
maybe that'll help us this fall. So as we get a better schedule on when courts will be open and closed, we can have a couple weeks notice.
Right. And we can go from like our side, since I'm on the operations side, we say when we want things closed. We don't want anything allowed before April 1st in some areas. So there's different ways you can do all things. Payments and everything.
Oh,
Yes.
great.
Now, I'm pretty sure Franklin Rec Department has that program.
They have a program, I know that.
I'm pretty
I
sure
think
that's what they have already.
It sounds very familiar. I've heard it
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure they have it. That's why when she was here, I had mentioned if they could
Share.
that they could use, we could use their.
And then they could just automatically block out the times they're using it.
Right.
and-
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there a cost for this rec tracks
Absolutely.
as far as,
It's-
for the price, like when you use your card? Do they take?
Yeah, there's a credit card fee.
Well, it's all
Sure.
how you would have it.
Yeah, there's a credit card fee.
Well, it's all
Sure.
how you would have it set up,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's either how the rec department has it set
Because,
up.
you
or-
know, we asked the rec department, we wanted to do a tournament for, and we didn't have a way. What we wanted to do is give the money to the parks department for, wanted a big canopy to the parks department for, wanted a big canopy table, you know, with umbrella thing. But anyway, we didn't do it, but said, well, maybe they could help us. It'd be like $1.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do that everywhere.
Right. Yeah, I just don't know what that cost is.
Usually the department keep that cost.
Yeah. Percent
Right. Right.
transaction.
I think $5. You mentioned $5. I mentioned $5. I think that's good fee. Like you said, you can kind of keep it cheap. You want people to use them. So,
You know what?
Waukesha charges $15 an hour
For 2 of them. For 2 of them.
How did I know you're immersed with other players. How did they feel about being charged for a court? Surveyed?
I haven't brought this.
I
I
guess
just
that-
wonder
we
what
pay a
the.
fee to be in the league through the rec department.
Okay.
The only thing I told him is that people, more and more players and want time.
I mean, the way I would look at it is if you're you got coming here today, there's probably 50 out there.
I mean, I think it'd be, my opinion is it's different if you had to pay to use it at all. But I think a nominal fee for the privilege of having your reserve time
Okay,
is
so you can
acceptable.
still go and show up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had talked for public play for.
Right.
So,
You have certain.
yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
that would just be first come, first served.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the goal is to not put a burden on staff that they don't have enough time to do anything what they're supposed to do, let alone, but at the same time, this growing demand that nothing is happening.
Today was learn to play.
Yeah.
I did do something similar,
Okay.
if you wanna look it over
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff, and you
sure.
can. I actually did it
Yeah.
last month, but I did it as the rec department was sharing it with us, so I won't
Oh,
show you that
okay.
one.
Yeah, maybe we can combine some of this.
Here, I'll give you that one too, and this,
Yeah, maybe we can combine some of this.
here, I'll give you that one too. And the charts aren't correct now, because I didn't wanna know if we wanted to put the real, what's gonna
Is it-
happen, or.
Did somebody want it?
Well,
Isn't it the
one,
same?
one is doing it co-op with the rec department, the
Oh,
one on your right, and then the other one is just us. And I just started, and the last 2 pages, I just stopped, because I just didn't have time, but.
well, and depending on what you do, like you mentioned, possibly a part-time person to help administer this, and depending if they get something online. You know, she said, took over pickleball.
Well, no, it would be that when you do a co-op like that,
I know, but I'm
they
saying
would
if you did
reimburse
it too.
us, right?
Oh,
Either you're already getting, or they are already getting the courts all the time. I broke it down to how much they were paying it for 2 hours.
oh.
Yeah,
with
I did the
time
math
period,
already.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
very cheap.
it's very inexpensive. Yeah, like I know you don't want to hear that, but like if we would have started this in the beginning and did it right the first time, like now it's hard to go. Did it right the first time, like now it's hard to go back. But if they can help us doing the reservations and using their programs for that and entering that, I wouldn't feel so bad because they were actually contributing to that part. Does this all make sense? Like I didn't want to go into that until it's here. Contributing to that part. Does this all make sense? Like I didn't want to go into that until it's here. No one understands what I'm talking
No, I
about.
totally get it.
Right, because they are using the courts and they are making money, even though it's like 50 cents
Oh, yeah, they make, yes,
person.
they do.
for the whole season.
Right,
Yeah,
yes,
person.
they do.
For the whole season.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and like she said, it's a nominal fee because they want to come in and participate, that kind of thing, but she's handling all. I mean, it's online, but.
Reports, we're fixing them, we're getting
Yeah,
them, and
I-
there's no money coming back to
Yeah,
us.
that's why I'm saying, you could pull it back.
Another
I
comment
feel
for
like I'm
for
evil
your
or
notes
something.
is that
But it's a true
yeah,
fact.
courts are reserved as well on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. to noon. That was a citizen request, right?
Yeah, that
That's-
was Sam's
So we-
senior.
We also had another citizen request on it too, so you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
right.
Right, well,
Pleasant
even
View?
those,
we
right,
said
how
that
many
we
you
were
gonna
gonna
have
be
of those?
changing the policy, but that was gonna be approved for the season
Yeah,
because
that was
the
at
book was
Pleasant
already
View.
being
So
printed
you're,
and we were
to
going
add
through
that?
it.
Pleasant View, 2 courts.
I don't think you need to add this Monday, Wednesday, because that was a citizen request.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
Yeah.
But I guess the reason this isn't final, I put it there was that unless you if we had some online system, show them blocked during
Right.
that time.
Right.
So, yeah,
Approved just for this.
yeah, I gotcha. So maybe not put that in.
I mean, I understand why you put it in, because it's convenient now. If somebody wants to record it, they know
Yeah.
that time frame's already taken based off of today's guidance that's written, right?
Mhm.
Yes, right? Yes. So Sam would have to, right?
Currently, yeah.
Yeah. Unless they join up. I mean, with rec.
I think he should.
Move to letter E, result of the Parks Commission recommendation to rename Lion Legend 2 Park to Vernon Bard.
The short version is, it was approved by common council,
So that's what it
no
is.
discussion. So,
Awesome.
So it's considered Vernon Bard now?
Fantastic.
So now we'll need new signage. Sorry, Michelle.
We'll move to letter F. Draft ordinance to add municipal code section 18348D to prohibit use of city park pavilions without proper authorization.
This is a council action I drafted, and we've had some discussion about what is okay. Is it one person sitting inside by themselves eating okay, or what is okay? Is it one person sitting inside by themselves eating okay, or anyway, council actions here. Open to suggestions for edits. How would you like to see edited? And pay particular attention to the how many people is and pay particular attention to the how many people is okay to sit down and eat. So
Yeah, I thought, I saw that it's number of persons, is discussed the number of persons that may use a pavilion without being an issue. It was decided that any number could cause messes, damages. I wasn't at the meeting. I know it was in November, and I thought there was some discussion about, I mean, you said son, but
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was surprised by this coming into our packet today when I got it at 3 o'clock and I read through it and I thought, oh, this is weird. I thought we already went over this.
well, we went over it, but it never had gone to
I don't-
common council.
And I don't remember the council ordinance to be drafted.
well, so for us to enforce it, has to be an ordinance. Otherwise, we can't.
Right,
enforce it.
and we had determined that vandalism was already a city ordinance
So-
that people would have to comply with.
And I want to, maybe there's some internal staff discussion and maybe recollection of what cited.
I know
Maybe recollection of what cited.
if I had had time, I probably would have referenced back to our minutes or listened to the audio from it because this really surprised me. I thought that this was kind of a moot point already. Based off of imposing a burden on the city of Franklin Police, Department to determine whether it was in their discretion at that time to enforce the rule. Asking for documentation showing us what you were talking about as far as what the cleaning of the facilities issues was. And then there's other issues in here. I didn't have much time to go through it, but I feel like we didn't ask for this, right? Did we ask for
Well,
this?
I know we to be added a number and that.
So
It
the
was.
direction staff received that it needs.
Is that it is? Okay.
And then Commissioner Lance had gone back through and gathered a list of reminders for me, so but yeah, it was.
So I'd like to see, you know, what are the fees that have been collected and what are the costs that were going above and beyond. So if the pavilions were not rented, would they not be maintained and clean? I'm assuming that if there's a budget that's already been proposed and being used to say that the rental fees are intended to cover that. I think it gives you access to the kitchen area with the keys, and then you get better access to the bathrooms with the key that you get when you rent it. So, and that you're the sole user of that area when you rent it. So, and that you're the sole user of that area when you rent it. The legit way, right? Going through the system to get it for your party. So the vandalism is more of a crime. In here it says people who don't reserve it are, you know, are allowed to break the rules, and they are not. They are allowed to break the rules, and they are not. They are also already, you know, responsible for following city, state, federal laws that exist that you can't vandalize areas. So I'm a PR. You can't vandalize areas. So I'm a PR person, and I see this as a potential nightmare because it's a community relations thing where you're like telling people, well, you look like you're having a party here, and so I'm going to call the cops, and the cops are going to, you're having a party here, and so I'm going to call the cops, and the cops are going to make their best judgment on that and kick you out.
So that last line, I say these unreserved uses do not have to acknowledge the rules. So when you reserve it, you have to acknowledge on a form.
You do.
You still have to follow, but when you reserve it, you have to acknowledge on a form.
You do.
You still have to follow, but no one is signing that they acknowledge the rules. The intent there. That's what the purpose is. Acknowledge the rules on a form.
Is that do identify most of the rules for the pavilions and the requirement to reserve it if you want to have a party.
Agreed, but when you rent it out, there's a place that you have to check, and I acknowledge following these.
And then if those people who have the additional access to the area of the kitchen was like an outside incident and they happen to have rented the pavilion during that time frame, would they be eligible for that damage?
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
Yes. So you sign this paper that says I'm responsible for all these requirements if I want to reserve the place, but there is the possibility that, you know, a group of people could come in and vandalize it.
That has happened.
You wouldn't be responsible if you called the cops and said there's people vandalizing this area, or they.
So, if you rent it for 2 hours, you only use it for say an hour and then you leave.
Mm-hmm.
If you rent it for 2 hours, you only use it for say an hour and then you leave.
Mm-hmm.
And someone comes in after you, you wouldn't know that to call and report that.
Right, and I remember we discussed the cameras.
But we would notice that. We don't have
only at Kayla's, right? Right.
when it's working. We don't have
only at Kayla's, right? Right.
when it's working.
Right.
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead.
So part of this is that getting larger groups. When there's got a rule that says they can't use it with a permit.
And I'm sorry that we experienced those, you know, minority incidents, but most people who are using the parks have an expectation that they would be able to utilize those tables and chairs if they want to have a picnic. I've had coffees there. It's not a group of 40 people. We're not trashing the area. But I think you would get that even without the ordinance.
So it's like the policeman pulling you over for going 2 miles over the speed limit or 30 miles. Policemen have a lot of discretion. So if you're sitting down with a group of kindergartners, you're making, it gives them a tool to put in their toolbox. But without that tool, they can't get a ticket for the people that are causing them.
All right.
Go ahead, Sharon.
And I see and here's of this argument. I do caution, and I think to the point that you're making, Kristen, and I'm going to use Kayla's Playground as an example. Let's just say as today, I mean, Kayla's Playground was busting at the seams. Let's just say as today, I mean, Kayla's Playground was busting at the seams. I mean, it's wonderful, you know, everybody using it. But let's just say as an example, a freak rainstorm blows up. Everybody goes under the pavilion until the rain passes. Now, under this ordinance, it goes under the pavilion until the rain passes. Now, under this ordinance, technically, someone could call the cops and say there's people using that pavilion without having a reservation. And I'm going to guarantee you there are people in our neighborhood who will do that. I guarantee you there are people in our neighborhood who will do that. I guarantee you the police would get calls for that. It's unfortunate that that would happen too. You know, there's an extreme on both sides. I'd like to think that there's a happy. I'd like to think that there's a happy medium here someplace.
Yeah.
And especially in a park such as Kayla's, and unfortunately we've had such a high percentage of the vandalism and problems there, but I mean, even I go in and sit down there when I'm with my dog, and you know, I'm struggling with this one.
Well, does the sign there say anything about if you're leaving? I mean, without saying
Has
you
anybody
can't go
from the
in there.
commission ever, or from the Department of Works ever gone and talked to the people who are there en masse when it's visibly obvious that they're abusing it? Do you know what I mean? With like, didn't they have like park people that like went around and like were marshaling parks as on a on that? No?
Well, our ambassador.
The ambassador is right.
At Kayla's.
Problem the police has to have. So the police shows up, there's people there making a mess, but they're not gone. So how do you, they didn't leave a mess. You know, they still have the opportunity to clean up before they go.
Yeah.
So the police is there, checks in on them, they leave. People making the mess leave without cleaning their mess. How do you, it's one of those, how do they chase them to find it?
It goes back to what I think that has been discussed elsewhere, even at the council level, that you can't legislate people's behavior.
Wasn't something we discussed the last time this was brought up, that the problem is that the mess that they were making, we don't have the resources or staff to clean it up. Like, we shouldn't have to clean up after people, but people will be, I think, inevitably. And I think something we brought up was budgeting, have extra people for that, or extra staff for that, or seasonal work, maintenance, if you will.
And Kevin, correct me, but I would suggest to you that we're very thankful to have the person that goes around. I don't know that we could find somebody else that's willing to do that job 8 nights on the weekend, goes into all these parks to clean up. We're fortunate. So if we had 2 people, that'd be great, but when it's a budgetary issue, I don't know. We have a hard enough time to keep people during the week.
So there's no employees out there that would. I'm not denying that there would be an issue with that. Obviously, you know, I've been to parks when the federal government shut down and all the federal parks weren't being maintained. You could see, obviously, the things that are done for you out of the paper, dirty diapers being taken out of trash cans, things like that. So every once in a while when you experience that issue, or maybe it's on a weekly basis, I could see the frustration. So the issue I understand. I wholeheartedly don't agree with making it more difficult by setting up solve the problem. I think if we could have an ambassador go and talk at the specific time when this large group of people are assembling there. I know there's some groups that have weekly meetings there, and it's a part of their whole, friend group, and they get together and their kids play and they sit in the park and have conversations with each other. And there's a lot of them. I could see how that might be viewed as an abuse of the property and the after effects. Haven't seen any physical, evidence. I asked for pictures when we talked about this last time because I said I'd like to see the physical, evidence. I asked for pictures when we talked about this last time because I said I'd like to see them, and I was told that I might not be able to handle them because they're really quite egregious. But I think if I could see what we're talking about, it would be easier for me to say, like, yes, we need a rule so the cops can come and present a fine. It would be easier for me to say, like, yes, we need a rule so the cops can come and present a fine to these people who are doing this terrible thing. But if it's vandalism, I think the police should investigate it like a vandalism issue and figure out who's doing it and then go through that process. And those laws already exist, in my opinion. This is making it more difficult for the Franklin Police Department having to impose their discretion on something that we're trying to solve our problem with.
Other communities that may have this same struggle or this issue, local
One thing that I
areas
have
that- and
seen
how they-
at some other parks is they lock up their picnic tables with, in the kitchen areas. What's the one, Scout Lake Park, inside of that one building and locked up, so you wouldn't have access to a picnic table unless you reserve the pavilion. And I know that the new area, all those garage door things that open up, are those picnic tables going to be open to the public unless you reserve that space? Open to the public unless you reserve that space?
How about, if I may, so our concern is really the mess people make generally with food and pizza boxes, right? So maybe we write the ordinance in such a way that, eating or making messes go inside of it. Just to go in a pavilion, sit down, and not making a mess. Again, of course, the mayor's not going to be mayor in a couple weeks, but his thought was let the policemen have a discernment. They don't even have that tool. It's pretty obvious that people are making a mess, but until you're there when they leave, how do you prove it?
I disagree. There's littering is against the law. Vandalism is against the law.
But he's saying
But-
they're
but
gone by the.
If
they're
I'm
gone.
there eating pizzas and have pizza boxes everywhere, you find that
But-
happens.
So then when I'm there with my, kids group and we're having our apple slices and juice boxes, the police are going to roll by and evaluate whether I'm a mom with a kid or I'm having a birthday. Or how much trash am I making?
Are you being
Did I eat pizza? Did I leave a box in the trash?
well? If they're there, and if it's you sitting down with your 3 kids, that's not what they're looking for.
I feel sorry for the inconvenience of vandalism and littering, but I don't think that the police department should need this additional requirement.
Do they go around to the parks now? There's large, they don't have a permit up and say, hey, nice you're having a party, but
No.
make sure you clean up. I mean, you could be cited. Maybe people then would clean up.
The point is, you can't catch them.
I know,
The point is, you can't catch them.
I know, but I'm saying if they're asking, you don't have a permit, make sure you clean up. That it's just a reminder for them to clean up, even though you shouldn't have to remind them to clean up. I'm just. So are we? I'm just. So are we in this, or are we?
I mean, it's here for discussion, so that's what you're doing, is discussing. So I will implement whatever Parks Commission.
From my experience working with walking, My working walking, my staff probably spends half of on rent. Yeah, we have a challenge with us. Someone will look at our online system and see that, for example, Scout Lake not rented, right? Lake not rented, right? And then they will just show up and have. That is why the locked. They will go to most of the picnic sites in Milwaukee County, all the tables changing, because otherwise they here home with.
Yeah, we
It's
do
true.
that at the department too.
We lose stuff left and right. It's not cheap to replace even picnic.
The clerk's office does say they get a lot of phone calls. You know, basically, is this rented Wednesday night? Oh, is it rented Thursday night? Oh, it's not? Okay. And they don't rent it.
We talked about this last
I
time.
heard you say
said,
that, yeah.
Then they have to go back to their group. So for scouts, we do that. We call and ask if it's available because there's no online resource to see when it is. And then we have to go back to our scout group and say, hey, we could do it on this day, you know? So they might be doing that. There might be ill intent from some of those calls. I'm not denying that. But sometimes it's planning people making plans.
And you can't like at Vernon Bard, you can't reserve that pavilion without the inside part. With that, if there was a cheaper way, if you don't use the inside part, because I think you said last year there were some groups coming up there, large numbers of them, and they would call and no, they're not rented. Well, they can't use the inside, but they still bring all their meals and everything up. If you could, you know, that would just be another thing, I guess, to rent. That would just be another thing, I guess, to rent.
The county, no, they do not currently. They have ordinances for littering. We do have ordinances that if you have a large gathering and it's publicly advertised, you have a permit. If you don't, we ask you if you have a permit. If you don't, we ask you if things are publicly advertised. Anything that we go with, food trucks, you have to have permits. Those kind of things are sheriffs are supposed to get involved, but different discussion, different day. But one of the pavilions is they're probably spending an hour there, and when you factor in staff, wages, and benefits, you know, you're looking at $50 to $60 an hour for someone just to do the minimum work, leave from the shop to show up, empty the trash cans, and most of the rentals occur on weekends. So where you have 3 or 4 people taking care of the parks, somebody might not go to a Pleasant View on a Monday night. Now all of a sudden, you show up 2 days later and the place is just destroyed. Now what was in trash cans is now all over because they got to it. People made a giant mess and got out of it. On the other hand, after the fact, and track down who was responsible for the damage left. I don't think the issue is cleaning up 4 or 5 pizza boxes that are left on tables all night. I think it's the plates, the napkins, trash, everything else that's just left in a state of disrepair because people don't have respect. And I think that's part of where they want to give a tool to the police department to be able to stop in and say, hey, prevent this from happening. But at the same time, you don't want to discourage a group from happening. But at the same time, you don't want to discourage a group of 10 people or a senior group going and, you know, sitting down and having a conversation for an hour or two. Nobody's looking at profile or go after it. I think it's an option that something should probably be addressed. It's an option that something should probably be addressed to help ease the burden, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's very clear to me what the problem is. Absolutely. I don't agree that this is the right solution for it.
Go ahead, guys.
Well, the reason this came about last year, and to begin with, is because it came to a head. It was a discussion with the police department when I talked about what we. This is what came up. And like Glenn said, well, we've had, pool, because we've had situations where they go there, it's obviously trash, but like Glenn said, do anything. So it's like if an officer goes there and there's 30 people there, and obviously pretty good sized mess, well, you know, because of this issue permit, but he's got nothing right now, nothing.
So,
That's all we're asking for, like Glenn said.
so as an example, there was last year, some folks had rented the pavilion, like during the day, like on Saturday. Some folks had rented the pavilion, like during the day, like on Saturday. I think that was happened at least twice that I heard of, and maybe it was more, but those people had left. So our cleaning person shows up Saturday night, clean up. She can't clean up because there's a group there. They didn't reserve the place. Can't clean, and so now because there's a group there. They didn't reserve the place. Can't clean, and so now one, it takes longer for her to say, hey, you need to get out of here, the park is closing, yada yada. So she goes to a different park, comes back, and they're still not there. They call the police. That happened at least twice last year. So, I mean, it's one of the police would have had the ability to say, you didn't reserve this, you're not supposed to be here, get out, or we're giving you a citation ticket, whatever. So our person could have cleaned up, but it just takes a lot of extra effort on a weekend to do those kinds of things. And I appreciate what you're saying. We're not, this is like being a jerk if we really wanted to impose it for everyone that was there who didn't have a permit. But this is really again, the policeman doesn't pull you over for going 2 miles over the speed limit. You know, it's got to be something excessive for them to be the jerk and actually give you the citation, or at least just a warning. You know, get out of here, clean up your stuff, get out of here. You know, at least that allows us to have the police help us out. But without this or something like it, we're kind of at the mercy of waiting until the park's closed at 10 o'clock at night before we clean it.
So you use the limit example, right? Laws for police department, you know, clock them at a certain speed.
Right.
Then we issue a citation, then we take them to court, then we have to pay the fine if they, you know, are found guilty. I don't think it's necessary to park pavilion trash.
I don't know if everybody's clear on what happens during a typical week at parks. We get 5 pavilions we can rent out, plus Market Square, which is basically 5 pavilions, and clean them up starting at 6, 7 in the morning until however long it takes. So our weekend person, she might clean and might take 4 or 5 hours, and then she's done. Next time someone's going to be at that park, most likely is going to be the next morning. So there's a lot of things that can happen there. There can be the next morning. So there's a lot of things that can happen there. There can, if there's a scheduled rental that might start early, it might start later. If you get some group in there before the rental, they could mess it up before the paid rental gets in there. If paid rental is first and paid rental gets in there. If paid rental is first and they don't mess it up and then some group gets in there after, they could mess it up. We don't have the manpower to control it periodically. It's just going to be every morning, and that's so I guess. And next thing I'd like to say was, I'll give an example. There was a group of women, and they come into these parks and they let their kids run crazy and make a mess. It's almost like they tell them all over everything. It's a mess. They don't like Mike said, they have no respect, and I don't know what the reason for that is or whatever, but it's beyond just normal mess. I'm not being a crybaby here. I think there's a level that you expect, and I think there's above that is you know, it's unreasonable, and it's gotten to that point of unreasonableness, and you know, what do you do about it? You have to Right now, the police, if you say something, they're gonna say, well, that's just what happens. If you say something, they're gonna say, well, that's just what happens. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know what the answer is.
I'm not suggesting that I'm in favor of this solution, but I think the real solution then is that we install accordion gates. Real solution then is that we install accordion gates on all of our pavilions and keep them locked when they're not reserved. I mean, that's really going to stop the problem. I don't want to see that necessarily, but
Well, they would, for Kayla's playground, for instance, they're just go on to the concrete table.
but that's not a reservable.
Right.
But if we want something to only be utilized when it's reserved, the only way to really keep people out of there is if we gate it off. I don't like it. I don't want necessarily like, but it's basically what you do at the county, correct?
Someplace.
In some places.
Someplace.
County, correct?
Someplace.
In some places.
Someplace.
And just so you know, there are other people that do something like this. I did borrow this idea from over in Michigan. The pavilion had a big sign up. You are not allowed to use this on this. They go up outside the ordinance.
So you were looking to draft this council.
Yeah, so if it's an ordinance, or if we really want the police to help us, it's got to be an ordinance.
Sure.
The question is, what do you want the police to be, and something that's feasible?
The question I have is, since we'll have
Action saying Parks Board is considering this, yada yada. Somehow you're struggling with the idea and would like their input.
that's fair.
I think that's a
Yeah.
very fair
I do too.
suggestion.
I can rewrite this and put it on a future common council. Maybe not this. So the question would be, would they want to see an ordinance enforceable? Or would they rather see us lock them up? Or I guess what exactly are you asking the common council?
I think as a think here. I think there's a problem, but I think we're struggling. So maybe look for their advice, since they're the ones who answer to the constituents. If it goes as a yes or a no, to answer and get their thoughts on this. And just let them know that we've discussed this. We're struggling with it. Recommendation from DPW, and we'd like their input. That makes sense.
It sounds very harsh. No, you're looking for some solution. It sounds very harsh. No, you're looking for some solution. But I even always think, when you reserve the pavilion, when I have, I always made sure everything's cleaned up. And then if I hear somebody say, oh, there's sparkly streamers or stuff that was left that I know I didn't do, I don't know how you can enforce what's left that I know I didn't do. I don't know how you can enforce any of it unless,
And
a lot of it.
if all of our residents were like you, we wouldn't need to even talk about it.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to pictures.
Nonsense.
Well, thank you. Move to letter G. Request by City of Franklin resident Ken Salas to conduct an invasive species weed out in Franklin Woods.
So Mr. Salas had he received a draft of a volunteer waiver that was based on the one from Kayla's playground. Had some feedback on that, and we need to consolidate those drafts so it's still with the City office. If you'd like to consolidate those drafts so it's still with the City office. If you'd like, I can invite him back to the next. You have your event on the 3rd of
25th. It's a Tuesday.
So I'm not sure what his timeline is.
Is he looking for additional volunteers?
I think so. But his suggestion was to change the language. I don't have the draft, but to change the language. I don't have the draft, but he wanted to make it specific to the Buckthorn project. And then he did have a question about who would the project manager be. What works if he want to volunteer to be like you want to volunteer to be like the boss. We need to resolve that question.
Desire to have an employee babysit the group. I'm not excited about that idea.
I think it would be a question more of like in like permission to share and access. So that's something that we should probably talk through with him then if you.
I would like, so I Gail can chime in, but I would like to make sure that we show up Monday morning, that pile is over, and for us we would keep getting rid of it. So
So with Buckthorn, it's very likely that he will leave it where it falls, because otherwise you're wasting material.
Do you dig it out? Is that what they do?
Mr. Solis is certified to cut and spray. The environmental committee has commissioned is that, and some of it depends on the time of year, is that you not support the material.
Is his spray non-toxic?
It's Roundup.
But it isn't now.
You know, are we prepared for that, for children to be walking through the woods? And
The infestation, you're right, it's the perimeter of the park, wooded area, so.
well, that's where the trail is, right?
Yeah, the entrance trail, and then the majority.
Right.
Yeah, the entrance trail, and then the majority of it that I observed last year was on the western end by that entrance off of Boots. So that's where I've seen the worst of it, but like infestation is actually bad. So maybe you want to see a map. So maybe you want to see a map.
Well, a map, and is there conversation about how we protect children from going to those areas after it's sprayed? Is it gated off with snow fencing or, you know, things like that, so that fencing or, you know, things like that, so that, you know, I would hate to have an instance where, you know, running through the woods and sprayed the day before.
Sure. So typically, when you remove this, put it at its site, and then it's not sprayed. It's site, and then it's not sprayed. It's basically like a giant Q-tip that
Yeah,
the
it's
stump where
that's
it's
what it
cut,
was.
and then Roundup dries in about a half hour to 45 minutes.
Okay.
And
And
then
they
it's
usuly
good.
do this in the fall, so the
Mhm.
kids should be in school.
Yeah, it's done.
Oh,
It's done
I'm
in the
thinking
fall.
he's doing it like soon.
So it's typically done.
Fall, so the
Mhm.
kids should be in school.
Yeah, it's done.
Oh,
It's done
I'm
in the
thinking
fall.
he's doing it like soon.
So it's typically done
No,
either
in the
early
fall.
spring or late fall before everything buds, and then the material after it's cut is just dropped in place, so nothing is transported. Anybody who has a pesticide applicator license has to post signs, like you see. Anybody who has a pesticide applicator license has to post signs, like you see on your yard.
Right,
if
right.
you're,
Oh,
like,
so
weed
there
bag.
would be.
Okay,
So there would be like keep out until or stay
Perfect.
off, and
perfect.
I mean you can't control everybody, but
Right.
if you put those signs up, it covers liability. Dale, you had something?
Oh,
If you put those signs up, it covers liability. Dale, you had something?
oh, I was under your impression, Marion, that he was gonna put it in small piles that we could, that we have to pick up every. I mean, that's what I thought he said. Volunteer.
Yeah, I would have to revisit it.
Lake Ernie was piles.
Yeah.
Kept growing.
And where are they going to leave it? Alongside of the road? Or are they to use the parking lot? use the parking lot. That's
I think these are questions for Mr. Solis. I wasn't able to coordinate having it this evening. But actually, if you want to compile a list, so I have a request for just a general map of where the Buckthorn Station is. Where he posts signs, where would the material be deposited, or should it be removed? He did send me a picture of the dauber that the chair described. It's of it in my brain. And he was here in the fall, but I think not.
no, I was here when he's.
Oh, you were, okay. Any other questions?
At Lions Legend / Vernon Bard Pavilion on June 3rd from 1 to 8.
Yep, so she submitted the letter that's in your packet. She was just hoping to have the expansion. I did invite her to the meeting, but she wasn't able.
I guess the only question I've heard is probably 4 or 5 inches, like, so requiring a hotline. Oh, anything? Electrical or water lines? Yeah.
You could make a condition.
Sure.
I'm actually not a fan of this at all. My concern is, again, what if a storm comes up, wind takes that, and hits some kids on the playground? That's our liability. I'm
Why
not a
didn't you
fan.
just rent the building?
She did rent the building.
But she wants like an extension off of it,
Must be
is what the letter, as I'm reading it here, wants like an extension off of it,
must be
is what the letter, as I'm reading it here, but I just don't know that I want the city to have that liability.
Did she say in the letter, I can't remember, hired somebody? Did she say in the letter, I can't remember, hired somebody to put it up? Doesn't say,
She
does
just
it?
wants a 10 by 20 outdoor patio tent.
They would have, sure. But, I don't know what the history is of this. Have people put
At Kayla's playground, yeah. But it was company. Yeah,
That's
so it was
different.
on the liability, on the liability, and so maybe.
I don't
Yeah, that's a
think
good
that
question.
her letter that she states that it's
Mhm.
by a rental company who.
Does not.
Want to request proof of insurance and bring this back to the.
When is her party?
Okay. Okay.
Because she's not here in person, we could have
Right.
asked her, right?
Right.
But I think that's fair.
Right.
Yeah, I have a 10 by 20. The organization that owns it. And 5 places.
For school.
That's what her sounds like.
Yeah. You know, and those aren't typically real sturdy. You know, they're packing up and going in the back of your van.
She's saying that. She's saying that since Mother Nature is unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yet unpredictability
Is the reason the red flags go up.
right.
And that tent took flight last winter. Hold it down. So
Yeah.
We'll move to letter B, the last one. Proposal to post no trespassing signs on city-owned properties, including the undeveloped Southwest Park.
We have certain parcels around the city owns that we're going to go to comment that are okay with us posting no trespassing. The thought was, I think we actually have some of them posted, but I realized that citizens say, hey, it's a public space, why can't I be there? And again, as well as if you don't have an ordinance, it doesn't count. So we should get this monumented in an ordinance, so that give the police something, to get them for trespassing, if you will. And then we realized there are some parcels that are city parks that maybe, in the Parks Commission, you really should have a recommendation on. So Southwest Park, Bar Tower Park,
Absolutely.
and any other park.
Apparently it's sticking.
So, at least until we get ready to open it up, we should probably post those properties. And then we've got several other properties we're going to talk to Common Council about, but we'd like to give your input on Southwest Park. Of any that might want to keep people from trespassing, or maybe a part of a park. But Southwest Park and Water Tower Park would be the two that I would suggest to you that we need to post no trespass. Please, for
Anybody have any thoughts?
Is there still access?
Yeah, the public access is up.
keep in mind, prior to us buying it, was a private audit.
No, I know. That's my neighborhood. Yeah, I don't see any. There's not much traffic there. I agree.
Awesome.
And once it becomes a construction zone, it'll be conditioned already to not be.
But you're only talking those two places. Sounded like
For the park areas. So again, there's more city property. For example, Oakwood and 112th Street, there's a city parcel right there that people keep dumping all kinds of stuff. We have places down in the south. We should probably actually show that. You go down to the southeast. Oh yeah, there it is. Mm-hmm. So there's a right of way trying to keep people from dumping barrels of whatever kind of liquid and other stuff. It's been crazy. Tires, we had to load tires, clean up. We really need something about no trespassing. So if we find them there, we don't have to actually catch them dumping something. They're not supposed to be here. We can cite them, and they're not have to actually catch them dumping something. They're not supposed to be here. We can cite them, and they're not allowed to be there. So we have several city parcels, but again, the two park parcels are talking to you. Undeveloped park parcels.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I will move to recommend posting no trespassing signs on city-owned properties, including the undeveloped Southwest Park and Water Tower Park.
Well, not there.
Yes,
whatever.
Future
the
parks.
the parks
Future parks.
the parks currently known as
The park's taken off the map.
parks currently known as
The park's taken off the
parks.
map.
Yes, yes, the park's taken out of.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You guys have it.
This is very beneficial. I've never seen anything like this. All the property.
Cool.
Yeah, so the GIS department pulled that together for DPW.
Alderwoman, is this your last meeting with us? Thank you.
Thank you.
We will miss your input.
I've enjoyed this for the past 3 years so much. We got a lot done in the past 3 years, so I will miss.
Thank you. You can always come back.
Yeah.
Got a whole period for you to talk. Nobody else comes.
I'm not inviting her up here on the table
Definitely.
again.
Come join the table.
Well,
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
oh,
And then the next meeting, if I'm looking at this correct, will be May 8th.
I do not know who's going to be here.
Appointments will happen on of April.
Excellent.
TBD.
What
That
are
being
you
said,
going to do on your second Mondays?
One
licensing committee and
Yeah,
think of all your free time.
I know. Well, I'm gonna be gone a lot, I think. You know, we'll see. I'll still be around. Bye.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We'll see you guys in.